In addition to the 5 logical fallacies that we already examined in the interactive presentation about logical fallacies, I want to add one more because it has emerged since I made that presentation as something that's really, really important and something that I hear more and more people talking about mostly because many public figures are using this logical fallacy, and so it's gotten a lot more attention recently. And it is called the Tu Quoque logical fallacy. There are some other pronunciations of that, like Tu Quoque, and I even saw one, a French speaker calls it Tu Quoque. So this is the thing that you mostly read. You can look up the pronunciation and adopt the one that you prefer. This is a Latin word, and so I'm no authority on the Latin language and can't tell you too much about that. But the cartoon will show you what that means. It means to respond to the argument that's being presented, not by focusing on the argument and denying its claim, but instead by saying, oh, but you do what you say, and therefore I can't trust you, you're no authority on that. So in the cartoon you have the person saying, you didn't turn off the autoclave, and instead of the person saying, yes, that's true, I did not turn off the autoclave, he instead says, you didn't turn it off either. And this is a kind of logical fallacy that I myself have been guilty of. When my husband tells me that I didn't park the car very well, I go, well, what about when you didn't park the car very well? Instead of saying, that's true, give me the keys, let me repark the car. So it's a logical fallacy that distracts from what's actually at hand. This is also called an appeal to hypocrisy, which is actually the term that I prefer because it's more clear to me. And I'll show you a couple more examples right here. We'll just wait a second for this to resolve. So here's a cartoon. Again, this is highlighting like a ridiculous one, but I'll give you some real examples in a minute. Apple AirPods cost $159, but they can't pay taxes or decent wages to their Chinese factory workers. Post, and this other person goes, gotcha, you posted that on an iPhone. So if you want to say that the person is hypocritical because she uses an iPhone even though she objects to it, that's fine, but that's not an appropriate answer to the objections themselves. The objections themselves are a company that has a high profit can't pay decent wages, and whether or not you use those products or don't use their products is not relevant to whether or not that claim is correct. And then the examples get a little more ridiculous after that. So this guy says cars should have seat belts. Ha, yeah, but you're a hypocrite because you use a car anyway. Or even, we should improve society. Yeah, but you're part of society. And you can see, like, when you take it to the logical extreme, how silly this argument can be. Here's a real life example. This is a picture of a person who issued marriage licenses in Kentucky. And at the time when the United States law changed so that homosexual couples were granted marriage licenses, this person refused to grant those marriage licenses because she didn't believe that it was a right thing to do. This was not marriage in her opinion. And so the meme here, though, says, oh, she married the first husband and then she had babies with the third husband, and then she divorced the first husband, and then she married the second husband, then she divorced him, then she had, okay, so all of these facts are supposed to say that, in fact, this person does not respect traditional marriage. This person is not living an example of a solid Christian marriage or whatever religion marriage. However, all of these things might prove that this person is kind of a hypocrite, but it does not in any way address what objections she has to the change in law that suddenly allows homosexual marriage. So those objections have gone unanswered by this attack. So saying that a person is a hypocrite may be a reasonable thing to say about that person, but it is not an answer to the objections that they raise. I can give you another example from Moroccan politics. There was recently a person who, gets on TV and says, "Oh, we have to have Islamic law in the government, and we have to follow all our traditional values and all this stuff." And she actually made a lot of money by promoting these ideas, selling books and things like that. She was a defender of Islamic ideals, and then she was caught making out with her boyfriend in public. Even though he was married. And so everybody went, "Whoa, this person's, and you can understand this person, yes, maybe we don't trust this person anymore. But if the claim that she's making is that we want to expand the role of Islam in Moroccan politics, whether you agree with that statement or not has to be done on the merits of that statement and not on an objection to the fact that the person who said it didn't live it. So that's a logical fallacy. Okay, so there's a subset of this logical fallacy that's called whataboutism. And this is something that's emerged really as a very important topic because a lot of people are really doing this. Somebody says Black Lives Matter, and somebody else goes, "Yeah, but what about the more serious problems that we have with drugs or gun violence or something like that?" And so they basically, instead of letting us focus on the topic at hand, says, "Hey, look over there." So here's, for example, this. If you had this on a quiz, you could think of this as two different logical fallacies. But here we have a cartoon of Trump, and he is, of course, nuzzling up to his mistress, who was a porn star and who he paid $130,000 to so that she would not interfere with his chance of being elected. And it's saying that he's labeled a criminal, and over here you have a picture of Obama nuzzling up to Iran, and it says that he paid a terrorist state $400 million. Okay, so now what we have here is false equivalency because it's really looking like these two things are supposed to be equal when in fact one of them is a political deal and one of them is like a side payment that's on a personal level. And whether you agree with this this deal that he made or not, it still doesn't make those the same. But the logical fallacy, the person is dealing with a current issue of Trump being accused of misappropriating campaign finances by saying, "Hey, look over there. Obama also made some bad financial deals when he was president." And so instead of responding to what's currently at hand about this payment, it says, "Hey, what about this? That guy did it too." And then another one that did not show up. Okay, so I'll just tell you. There's during the 2016 election campaign, many people kept bringing up a scandal that Hillary Clinton had with her email server. And some people say that this was an important topic. Some people say that it was not an important topic. But it seemed like anytime there was any criticism of any other candidate, somebody said, "Oh, but her emails." And now, of course, people who followed her and who liked her keep going, "But her emails." Every time there's a scandal about Donald Trump, and there's a scandal like every week. And so people say, "But her emails," in order to remind them that this tactic was used to distract people from the real issues at that time. And you yourself might have been guilty of this particular logical fallacy in saying, engaging in a conversation about a topic that you don't really like the way that the conversation is going, and you say, okay, well, what about this other problem that seems like a bigger problem? Like, we want to talk about sexual harassment on the street, and then somebody says, well, what about terrorism? And that's a logical fallacy.